What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's video. I know this is going to be a little different than the past few videos I've posted, but I think that this is some good information and hopefully will help somebody in making a decision on what kayak to buy if you are a bigger person. I had a comment on one of my videos before asking between a NuCanoe and a native, and I was like, there really is a way that this information needs to be presented. So I've typed up a few notes here. I'm going to go over my experiences and, try to pass on as much information as I possibly can to help you make a good purchase, or at least an informed purchase. So first off, I want to say a disclaimer. I am not a professional. I've only been doing this for about 3 years now, but I've spent a lot of time on the water in a lot of different kayaks and have watched an insane amount of YouTube videos over kayak fishing. So I want to share what I've picked up and what's kind of helped me make my decision on the kayaks that I'm using today. To me, kayak fishing is one of the best ways to fish, mainly because the barrier of entry of getting into kayak fishing is significantly lower than a boat. Even when it comes to purchasing a used kayak versus a used boat, significantly different. There's a ton of pros and cons to both buying a John boat or a bass boat even versus a kayak. This video is solely about kayaks, so there's a few that I'm going to bring up that are on the pricier side, and yes, you may be able to get a John boat for the same price, but that's not what this video is about. It is solely about kayaks and trying to find the best one after you've made the decision that you are going to be kayak fishing and you want to purchase a fishing kayak. So to kind of give you some context before I start this video, I want to say my weight, my height, and where I was at my biggest whenever I was kayak fishing. So I am 6'2". I'm currently 260-ish pounds. And at my heaviest, I was pushing 320 easy. And there are fishing kayaks that I couldn't get in, and there are fishing kayaks that would easily hold my weight. So I want to help you understand the differences between them and what to look for when you're purchasing a kayak. So first off, let's go through the things that you should consider when purchasing a fishing kayak as a bigger person. First off, I want to talk about weight capacity. There's a very big difference between a max weight capacity versus a usable weight capacity. Usable weight capacity is what you can actually use yourself as the paddler with a motor and all the gear that you want to carry with you. Where max weight capacity often takes in consideration the weight of the kayak itself. I'm going to pull up a kayak and we'll show you what I mean. So Native is a pretty popular kayak brand. A lot of people love the Titan X. I personally have not been in one. I know they're super stable, but we're going to look at one thing about the Propel Titan X 12.5. Titan X 12.5 Propel. I don't know, but people call it the Titan X, okay? So we're going to look at the specs here. So the max weight capacity for this is 500 pounds, okay? Let's say you're a 300-pound guy. You're like, awesome, I still have 200 pounds that I can use. Not a big deal. You know, I can carry out a ton with me. The problem is Native uses their fully rigged weight in this calculation. So really, you have 500 pounds minus 172 pounds. But that is going to put you roughly at 328 usable pounds. So knowing this information, you are 300 pounds as a person. You can carry out 28 pounds worth of gear. I can guarantee you if you want to put a motor on this kayak, it is going to be well above the usable weight capacity. Now, is this like a hard stop? Absolutely not. You can go over, but this is where the manufacturer says this is a usable weight capacity, and this is where it's going to perform best. I overloaded my first kayak like crazy. I had an Ascend 12T from Bass Pro Shops. That thing sat so low in the water. I was like 320 pounds, carrying another like 50 pounds or more worth of gear. It was not safe. I'll say that. And that is something to consider. If you are going to be fishing, 5-10 foot of water all the time, probably not a big deal, right? But who wants to turn over in 50 foot of water, 30 foot of water, whatever, and you're, a mile away from shore? That's pretty scary. And anytime you overload a kayak, there is a chance that that could happen because the stability is going to be off. Things are going to wobble way more than they should. So that is something to consider. Let's take an example of another kayak. NuCanoe. These are awesome kayaks, most popular being the Unlimited. So let's say we are looking at the Unlimited here. NuCanoe brings it out as plain as day, and they say, okay, you have a max capacity of 650 pounds. The hull weight is 84 pounds. Okay, so you still have easily over 500 pounds that you could load this down with. Now, one thing that is very interesting to think about is the self-bail capacity. You're not going to find this with most kayak manufacturers, but NuCanoe goes ahead and says this is the self-bailing capacity. And what that means is that you can run that kayak with the scupper plugs out and not have to worry about it taking on water that it cannot bail. 400 pounds is that limit. So let's say you didn't want to run scupper plugs in, okay? You have 400 pounds to play around with there. The only thing that I'm not too sure about is if that considers the hull weight. I don't think it does though. But let's say it does just to be safe. So that is 316 pounds there that you can run without having to worry about it not being able to bail. I think it's higher than that though. So I'm going to say it's self-bail at 400 without the hull. You can carry a ton with that. Let's say you're a 300-pound guy, a motor guide. It's going to run you about 50 pounds, maybe 60 pounds once you have the battery, because I think it's like 40 pounds for the Motor Guide XI3. And then you got another like 25, 30 pounds for LiPo battery. And if that's another thing, if you're a bigger guy, you have to think about things that you're putting in the boat. So like a deep cycle, lead battery is going to weigh double the amount that a lithium battery is going to take. So yes, it is worth spending a little more and getting a lithium battery because you are cutting down the weight by in half. And that's more that you can carry out in gear or yourself if you're bigger. So we've talked through usable weight capacity versus max weight capacity, and we've talked through what self-bailing means and how to know whether or not you need to keep your scupper plugs in when using a kayak. Personally, I like having scupper plugs in just because if you're flying down, let's say like right now, I've got the PWR 129. If I'm flying down hitting 7 miles an hour with my NK300, water's coming up through those scupper plugs and it's actually causing drag, causing me to actually go slower and be less efficient than I would be if those scupper plugs were plugged. So personally, I like using scupper plugs, but some people don't. Whenever you do have scupper plugs in, you're sitting higher on the water. So what that means is you're going to kind of be more affected by the wind and so forth. Being able to sit lower in the water and having the water kind of inside or right at, the scupper plugs, it's going to allow you to grip that water better and have just better stability. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up is stability and why that's important. There are two types of stability that you need to be aware of, and that is first and secondary. So straight from Google, first versus secondary stability on a kayak. Primary stability is how stable a kayak feels when sitting upright and on flat water, while secondary stability describes how stable the kayak remains when it's leaned over to one edge. And this is going to matter depending on the type of hull that the kayak has. Great example would be comparing a catamaran style hull that you'll find on like a Bonafide versus what you'll find on a NuCanoe. I think personally, and this is what I've noticed, is the primary stability is going to be better on a NuCanoe. It doesn't feel quite as tippy, but once you hit that threshold and you're locked into one side, that secondary stability isn't as nice as it is on a catamaran hull like a PWR 129. Bonafide kayaks just tend to be a little more wobbly in my opinion, but once they lock into one side, they're locked in. So you got to find between those two what's more important to you. And honestly, something to think about is the longer that you kayak fish and the more you kayak fish, the more comfortable you're going to become with this. And the more comfortable you're going to become standing in your boat. Personally, I love standing and fishing, so it is important to me to have good primary stability, but also something that's going to lock in secondary wise. So if a kayak has a high weight capacity, but it doesn't have good stability, it's worthless for you, in my opinion. So one thing that I've noticed online whenever I was looking is a lot of people are saying that you should go out and demo a kayak before you buy it. And yes, that would be awesome, but I don't think that it is realistic to think about being able to do that every time. Personally, whenever I was looking for a kayak at first, I called around to a bunch of my local shops and none of them offered demos. The only way that you could demo is if they were doing a specific event or something like that. While I think it's nice to be able to demo, and this is something I've noticed. One of the kayaks that I tried was the Old Town Autopilot 136, which I do own now, but I was able to demo that one. But that is a $5,000 kayak versus a NuCanoe Unlimited at $1,700. I don't know where I could actually demo that. I'm sure that, you know, there are dealers out there that would have done that, but I couldn't find them whenever I was originally looking for a place to demo it. But you got to think about it from the dealer side too. Like, I don't know that it would necessarily be worth their time as much for a $1,700 kayak than it would be like a $5,000 kayak. So I totally get that may not be an option for everyone. And something to think about is you may not have a local dealer anyways. So you may be purchasing this online and having it shipped to your house. So while I think that it is nice, and if you can, I highly recommend looking into demoing a kayak, but I also understand that that is not something that is readily available for everyone. So I want to go over a few options that I think are good for bigger people, ones that I've owned myself, and ones that I would purchase if I was on the market right now. So we're going to start off with Native Watercraft. The Titan X is good. I think that it is very stable from what I've heard. If you're looking for a kayak that you are not going to add a motor to, it does have the ability, but if you are a big person, you have 330 pounds of usable weight that you can use on this one. So if you're looking for something that you just want to use to paddle, or excuse me, pedal, this would be a good option. And that allows you to have, you know, 330 pounds to work with, whether that be human or whether it be human plus gear. I've heard the stability on this one is awesome. But here's an interesting thing. They've recently put out a Slayer model here I want to pull up. There is a Slayer Propel 10 LTE. This is a lightweight kayak. I can't speak to the stability of this one, but it would be one to take a look at because it has a weight capacity of 425 pounds and the fully rigged weight is only 85 pounds. That leaves you with roughly 340 pounds to play with for kayak plus gear, or excuse me, kayaker plus gear. And this looks like a smaller, maybe a slightly different, less boxier hull, but people love Native. And I think that this should be something that you should consider, especially if you're looking for a smaller kayak at 10 foot. That's awesome. You could easily put that in the back of a truck bed. Those are really the only two that I would recommend out of the Native lineup currently. From what I can see that a larger person should consider. And of course, I've seen bigger guys. There's one guy that I watch. He's 6'6", and I think he said he was like close to like 330 or 350 pounds. And he had the Titan X. Now, he was running with the scupper plugs in. I actually think he wasn't even using the Propel either. He had took that out and replaced it with a bow mount motor. But his deck stayed dry. So, you know, that may be still a good option and something to think about. Whenever you start to kind of narrow down the kayak that you're looking for, it's smart to look at reviews, long-term reviews of these kayaks, as well as the people that are giving these long-term reviews. You know, if you have a big dude that's giving the review and he's like, oh, I love this thing, that's something good that you need to think about. But enough said about that. Let's go ahead and move to the next company, which is Bonafide. However you want to say it. This is Native's sister company, and I freaking love them, man. I love this brand. So I currently have the PWR 129, and I am definitely going to be picking up an XTR 130 once I can sell my Old Town Autopilot. I love my Autopilot. That's a thing for another video. Let's go ahead and talk about this. So let's look at the PWR 129 first. So this one, you have a max capacity 500 pounds, fully rigged weight 102 pounds. That leaves you 398 pounds to work with. That is awesome. At my heaviest in this boat, I think I was like close to like 315 pounds when I first got this boat. And I did end up selling it because I didn't like how much water I was taking on. But I never used scupper plugs with it. But I ran a bow mount at 320 pounds and had a ton of gear in here, and it worked. Was it the best experience. Not really. I think if I was a little lighter, it would have been better. But it works great. It's a good kayak. I'm went and purchased it again. That should tell you how much I liked it. I'm running it now with a stern mount NK300, and it is awesome. I'm getting 7 miles an hour easily in that thing, and I'm currently 260 pounds. So a little guy or, a big guy can run this one for sure. And it is stable. It's got very good secondary stability. First is a little wobbly, but you kind of get used to it. Very stable, high weight capacity, and very good features on this boat. Let's say you want to go bigger. They offer the XTR 130. This is insane. It's got a standing deck, and it is just a big capacity. 750 pound capacity. Oh, look at this. Okay, so they actually wrote it down here. They may have had this on the other one, but I didn't see it. Capacity is determined by taking the kayak weight, the paddler weight, and the gear weight. So fully rigged weight on this one, 170 pounds. So we take 750 minus 170. That is 580 pounds worth of usable capacity. That is insane. 2 people could use this, or a very, very, very big person could use this. Personally, I want to get this and use it with a bow mount motor and load this thing down with electronics, kit it out, and put this thing on a trailer and never try to put this in the back of my truck bed. But this is a good option. It is an expensive option. It is a big option, but the weight capacity is insane. Those are the 2 options I want to talk about from Bonafide. Let's go to the next one. Honestly, I would argue Old Town here, this is the one we're going to talk about next, is probably the most big person friendly fishing kayak brand. Let's say you want a paddle kayak here. Let's go look at that. You can get a Old Town Sportsman 120 here for $1,000, and you have a usable weight capacity. That's what I love about Old Town is they put in the usable weight capacity. The weight that's left for people, gear, and pets after accounting for the weight of the assembled boat. Thank you, Old Town, for making this very easy to understand. 415 pound weight capacity. That's crazy. This is a great option for a kayak. They are super stable. I love Old Town. I really do. If you're looking for a pedal kayak, they also have you covered with the PDL 120. They also offer a big water. I don't know that I like necessarily the whole design of that one. Personally, I think of the Sportsman PDL 120. It's the same as the one we just looked at, but it has a pedal drive. Usable weight capacity on this one, still 384 pounds. That's a lot of weight that you can put in that boat. And something to think about is a lot of people, they want to buy a pedal kayak and not put a motor on it. And you have 380 pounds to play around with there. That's awesome. Quick disclaimer, Old Towns, while you can put motors on them, I don't think they're the most optimized to put motors on. So if you plan on putting a motor on it, maybe worth looking at like Bonafide. I think that them or NuCanoe are probably the most motor-ready kayak. That's a whole nother video, though. I'm solely talking about weight capacities and stability, really, in this video. 384 pounds, though, on that one. That one's good. If you want the Cadillac, you have the autopilots to look at. There are 2 different models. There's the the Autopilot 120 and the Autopilot 136. Same thing. You'd have a higher weight capacity with the 136, maybe a little bit more stable. That's the one I have. I like it. The 120 still has a usable weight capacity of 406 pounds. The 136 has a usable weight capacity of 502 pounds. And I will tell you, I don't think I've ever even thought about putting scupper plugs in this thing. And I've loaded it down and never had to worry about it. This thing is stable. I can dance on the deck of this thing. It's great. But you're also paying for it. This is a $5,000 kayak. And if you go with the 120, it is $4,500. It is an expensive kayak for sure. So let's look at a affordable option and one I mentioned earlier, and that's NuCanoe. I like saying that the Unlimited is probably one of the most affordable options because of what all you can do with it for the price. And I love it. My dad's currently using the Unlimited that I had before. Where's it at? Okay, there we go. And he loves it, though. It's great. 650 pounds, 400 pounds of self-bailing. So this is really awesome. It's super stable. I mean, you can see this guy here. He's a little guy, but look at that. That's awesome. He's standing on the very front of it. You can put a motor on these things. The reason they call this the unlimited is because your options are literally unlimited. I had a trolling motor, a tiller trolling motor on the back of this. I've put a bow mount. I've had a stern mount. I've had the pedal drive on this thing, and I've paddled it. Even paddling it, it paddles pretty good. So the unlimited, definitely one to look at by NuCanoe. The last option, I will tell you, I personally have never tried it. I've heard good things from this company, Wilderness Systems, and this is going to be a kayak that I think could shake up the market, so I'm going to mention it. Whenever this kayak was first announced, I did a video over it comparing it to the XTR 130, and I'm sure some of you are probably subscribed from that. But yeah, check out the usable weight capacity on this. Max weight capacity of 800 pounds. Now is 158 pounds that it weighs, so we take that, and you still have 642 pounds to use here. That's a whole lot of weight capacity. This thing's ready for a motor. It's got like a catamaran style hull. It looks awesome. I don't know much about this other than, you know, what's here on the website. I'm not sure how thick their hull is, how durable it is. I'm not sure of their warranty, but for $2,400, that's very competitive as far as the price goes, and especially for what all it offers. So this is definitely one that I would look at as well. So that's a roundup of all the different brands. Now I want to just talk about the models that I've personally used and, you know, what I liked about them. I had the Ascend 12T. That one was pushing the limit. I was pushing the limit on weight on that one, but it worked pretty well. I've had the NuCanoe Unlimited. It's great. As I said, highly recommend it. R129, another good option. I really like it. And the Old Town Autopilot 136, another great option. So guys, I hope that this was beneficial to you larger people looking to getting into kayak fishing, or honestly, if you're just looking for a kayak and you want a high weight capacity, hopefully this kind of helped. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Until next time, thanks for watching.